Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction House. I'm taking a look at one of the guns that is coming up for sale in their June of 2016 regional auction. And this is an Eibar pistol, and I apologize, it's probably too tiny for you guys to really see from out there. So I want to touch on some of the history of this particular factory, then we'll zoom in and take a closer look at this pistol itself. Now, this is what's called an Alkar, A-L-K-A-R. It was manufactured by the Alkartasuna company, and this company was actually, man, they managed to get it just right, entirely, I think, through luck. There were 8 founders of the Alkartasuna company, and almost all of them were actually disgruntled employees of what would later become Astra. There had been some strikes in 1913, and most of these guys had been ex-striking Astra workers. And they got together and basically said, screw it, let's make our own company, we can do this better ourselves, and founded their own company, Alkartasuna, in the town of Guernica. Now, the Eibar region in Spain has long been a center of arms production there. They had all the raw materials necessary, and kind of like Liège, Belgium, or Springfield, Massachusetts, these are areas that historically have had a lot of firearms development in them. Well, this company was founded in early 1914, and this time period, the early teens in Eibar, was not a very good time. There were a lot of endemic problems with the industry. There was no standardized proofing law in Spain at the time. There were a lot of quality control issues. These guns didn't have a very good reputation, and the market was just bad at this point. To the point that the Eibar provincial government had actually put together a civic works program to keep people employed. And as commentators at the time noted, there were master gunsmiths out there building roads by hand because there just wasn't enough business in firearms. So that's the backdrop for why these employees they're not happy with conditions, and they set off, start their own company, and then, luckily for them and unluckily for most of the rest of the world, World War I breaks out. All of a sudden there's a tremendous interest in firearms and a huge market. The French army in particular comes to Eibar and finds the Ruby pistol, which it thinks is just right. They're cost effective, they're cheap, they're heavy but reliable, they're reasonably durable guns. It's exactly what the French army was looking for a cheap mass-produced pistol. And they start placing orders with a bunch of companies in the Eibar region to manufacture these guns, and Alkartasuna is one of these companies. By late in the war, they were manufacturing 25,000 pistols a month for the French military, and in addition, the Italian military shortly thereafter. So this company was founded just at the right time, and it took off, and it did extremely well. Of course, when the war ended, all of that demand dried up. All of a sudden, if we're not fighting weeks and months of battles at Verdun and losing guns by the truckload, we don't need to buy a whole lot more. And so at the end of the war, all of a sudden, these companies, like Alkartasuna, that have tooled up for huge amounts of production, have to come up with some way to stay in business. So Alkartasuna continued making its pistols. They made some 25 caliber vest pocket types. They made a kind of a visual copy of the FN Model 1910. Ultimately, they went out of business because the factory burned down in 1922, and that was the end of Alkartasuna. But one of the projects that they had after the war, but before they shut down, was this guy, the Alkar. Now, this little pistol is a substantial departure from the typical Eibar production guns, and there are 2 reasons for that. One is it has this quite unusual grip safety mechanism, and the other is that it's a cartridge counting gun. So if you look up close at the side of the left grip, you will see that it's got these numbered windows. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I think the coolest one, a question mark. Now, we'll start with that because that's easy to demonstrate. If I can get the magazine out. The magazine itself has this little indicator arrow that travels on the follower. Now, I have some 25 caliber snap cap dummy cartridges. Let me put a couple of those in. All right, loaded up 4 of these snap caps. That's of course pushed the follower down, and now when I put this magazine into the gun, presto, I have a nice little visible indicator here telling me that I have 4 cartridges. If I go ahead and cycle 1 into the pistol, now I have 3 cartridges. 2. Now, if I chamber that last cartridge, I have question mark left in the gun. I think that's pretty slick because it really is a recognition of the fact that at this point I have an empty magazine, no cartridges left, but that doesn't necessarily tell me if the chamber is loaded or empty, hence the question mark. Turns out, I had one in the chamber. Now, the other interesting element mechanically to this pistol is this grip safety. So the grip safety is currently depressed. You can see it has a little F for fire there. Get that in the light, there you go. Now, this works totally differently than any other grip safety. So in order to engage the grip safety, I'm actually going to grab it by these 2 little knurled pads and pull it backwards. A very sharp snap, and now the safety is engaged. Trigger does nothing. In order to fire the gun, what I actually have to do is push on the grip safety and the trigger simultaneously. And you can't tell this on camera, but it's actually it feels like it's working the reverse of what you would expect. The trigger is acting as sort of the grip safety, and the grip safety is what's actually firing the gun. So I hold on the trigger, push on the grip safety, and that just fired the gun. Now, when I release it, the grip safety remains engaged. When I cycle the action to recock the hammer, now I don't have to have any pressure on it, and I can fire the gun again with the trigger. And this goes on until such time as I decide I'm done shooting and I manually re-engage the grip safety. So we tend today to think of a grip safety as something like the gun will only work when I'm holding it properly, and should someone wrestle the gun out of my hand, now it won't work unless they get a proper hold on it. When in fact, this is more like a web of the hand activated manual safety, where this allows you to carry the gun loaded and chambered safely because you've locked the hammer by doing this. But then when you go to use the gun, all you have to do is get a grip on it once, and you can fire your first round, and then the gun will fire normally until you re-engage the safety like you would a manual safety. And by the way, you cannot re-engage it unless the hammer is actually cocked. Now the hammer's cocked. Now I can put the safety back on. Kind of like a manual safety, where if the hammer's down, you can't put the thumb safety on. Now, this is a substantial departure from the other guns that Alkartasuna was making, and it's most likely thought that they probably subcontracted this manufacture out. At this point, this would have been probably 1920, maybe 1919 that these were being manufactured. The company didn't have a lot of spare cash lying around to tool up on a potentially risky new product. So like I said, they probably came up with the design, subcontracted it out, bought either the components and did final assembly, or maybe even just got these complete from their subcontractor and then marketed them. You'll see that they're marked 75. This has a serial number of 75,000 and change. They didn't make all that many of these, but Alkartasuna's pistols were all being made, well, they're civilian pistols, were all being made in a single contiguous serial number run. So I've seen a couple other examples of these cartridge counter guns, and they're all in the 75,000 range. The last interesting bit is I did find reference to one other cartridge counter Alkar pistol, but one that worked differently. It didn't have this indicator arrow on the follower, and the viewing windows in the side panel were actually in line with this slot in the magazine. And the way that one worked is you could actually see the cartridge cases through these little windows and see how many were left in there. In the same way that they did this one. There was one little window specifically for each position. So interesting that they did a couple different variants on this same idea. Obviously, none of them became particularly popular. That's because, especially with this grip safety mechanism, this is a really expensive gun for what it is. You could buy a .25 caliber vest pocket pistol from any number of other people in Eibar for a whole lot less money than it would have cost to make one of these. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Definitely something a little bit different to come out of Eibar, and I thought it was quite the interesting, cool little gun. If you did as well, you know, it is coming up for sale. You have an opportunity to purchase it yourself if you'd like to. Take a look at the description text below. You'll find a link there to Rock Island's catalog page on this little guy. And if you like what you see there, you can place a bid for it directly through Rock Island's website. Thanks for watching.